Hello, and thank you for joining us here at the Human Resource. My name is Pandy Pridemore, and you're watching and listening to us from the station of ICRC-TV right here in Cincinnati. Today's topic is severe and pervasive. And this is a topic I've been wanting to talk about for quite a while. I've been talking to a couple of our attorneys to say, you need to come on and discuss this. We just haven't been able to schedule it yet. So I wanted to go at least in an introduction fashion about this topic because with the new guidance coming out from the EEOC on workplace harassment, severe and pervasive are one of the 3 points to determine a hostile work environment. And I have a number of people who look at me and go, well, what do you mean severe? I mean, if they're being harassed, it's severe. No. According to the EEOC and the courts, there are certain acts that are severe enough that it's automatic, hostile work environment material, automatic. And yet there are other situations where not so much. And when we're looking at an employee who will complain and complain and complain and complain, and yet they're still there, they're still going right back to the environment, they're still going right back and spending time with the individual that they're complaining about, or they're going right back and pretending like nothing ever happened, and then 3 days later they come back and start whining and fussing. You begin to wonder, is it severe enough that it is a hostile work environment, or is this individual just being oversensitive? So I wanted to go back, and again, I have to thank Angela for this because she's been working on a workplace investigation here recently. We've talked on the phone a number of times. I've gone up to see her a number of times, and this is one of the things that we had to really take into consideration was the element of severe and pervasive. So I decided to pull the regs out. I'm going to put my glasses on here and actually read from the EEOC's enforcement guidance on harassment in the workplace. And it may sound a little dry, but here's basically what they're saying. A supervisor's power and authority invests his or her harassing conduct with a particular threatening character. Now think about this. When an individual has authority or power over someone, that has to be weighed. So is it someone of authority or is it a peer? And what does that peer do? What's the relationship with the employee? With authority over the employee that's concerned or the complainant typically has more impact on the complainant's work environment than similar misconduct by an individual lacking such authority. It has to be considered. Moreover, the severity of the harassment may be heightened if the complainant reasonably believes that the harasser has authority over her or him, even if the belief is mistaken. So that's why we go back to the individual who might be a peer, and if that particular individual has given off the impression, or if we have asked in slight ways or insinuated this individual because maybe of tenure, maybe of seniority, maybe of the type of work the individual does, if that individual is perceived to have authority or power over the complainant, that act could be considered severe if there's a concern of harassment. More directly, harassment affects the complainant, the more likely it is to be negatively affect the complainant's work environment. Thus, harassment is generally more probative of a hostile work environment if it occurs in the complainant's presence than if the complainant learns about it secondhand. So if it's happening directly to the employee versus someone coming in and saying, oh yeah, they just called you a fat slob, or they just called you lazy. It's more severe if it's face-to-face. Hearsay is not taken as seriously. Again, nevertheless, a complainant's knowledge of harassing conduct that other employees have separately experienced may be relevant to determining the severity of the harassment in the complainant's work environment. What is this basically telling you? How can you look at this? This means that, again, if you get someone who starts complaining and believing that they are being harassed in the workplace, you have to do an investigation. It is your responsibility to get as many details as possible. When did it happen? Where did it happen? Who's doing it? Who witnessed it? What time? What were the conditions? When you're talking about these kind of details, you have to do things quickly, timely, and ask all the questions necessary to get the facts. This goes on to say some conduct may be more severe if it occurs in the presence of others, such as the complainant's co-equals, subordinates, or clients. For example, a worker's sexually degrading comments may be more severe if made in the presence of a complainant and the complainant's subordinates rather than solely in the complainant's presence due to the humiliating nature of the interaction. How many times have we talked about bullies? We have talked about bullies on this show over and over and over again. And that is a good example of the act or behavior of a bully. Some bullies like to be the center of attention, so they will humiliate someone in front of their peers, in front of customers. They'll make them look silly or stupid, or they'll make a comment, well, that was a stupid question. According to the new regs, you could have a severe situation. The complainant could claim workplace harassment if this is not controlled. Because the severity of harassment depends on all the circumstances, the considerations discussed above are not exclusive, and other factors may be relevant in evaluating the severity of alleged harassment. For example, harassment may be more severe if a complainant has reason to believe that the harasser is insulated from corrective action. Oh my gosh. Stop right there. How many of you are non-confrontational, or you just don't have any consequences for this behavior? You just say, oh, well, that's just the way he is. You just have to let him go. He just loves to pull pranks. Oh, he always talks to people like that. He's just grumpy sometimes. You just kind of have to ignore him. Guys, this is in print. This is in writing. They're specifically telling you that if the complainant believes that you're not taking this seriously and you're allowing this bully to continue with behavior, they're going to call it severe. So if we have this identified, here's specifically, in limited circumstances, a single incident of harassment can result in a hostile work environment. And again, the list I'm about to give you is not all-inclusive or exhaustive, but listen to these. These are huge bells for you that should be going off. Sexual assault, sexual touching of an intimate body part, physical violence or the threat of physical violence, the display of symbols of violence or hatred, such as a swastika, an image of a Klansman hood or a noose. How about the use of denigrating animal imagery, such as comparing the employee to a monkey, ape, or other animal? How about a threat to deny job benefits for rejecting sexual advances? Or the use of the N-word by a supervisor in the presence of a black subordinate? These are just a few of what the EEOC is saying. Look, this is bad. This is considered severe, and it only has to happen one time. As stated by one court, epitaphs are intensely degrading, deriving their power to wound not only from their meaning, but also from the disgust and violence they express fanatically. Using epithets based on protected characteristics is a serious form of workplace harassment. When I give you this information, I'm challenging you to go back to your workplace and take a good hard look at what's going on. Or make this a topic of conversation or training for your supervisors or your managers. Ask them, what's going on? What do you see? What do you hear? How are your employees interacting with each other? How are they engaging with each other? You need to be doing this on a regular basis. We need to be knowing what's going on in our business. Pervasiveness is described more frequent but less severe incidences can create a hostile work environment, and most hostile work environment claims involve a series of acts. The focus is on cumulative effect of these acts rather than on the individual acts themselves. And as noted above, there's no magic number. So remember, we're not talking about it has to be 3, it has to be 5, it has to be 7. No. I just give you a list of things that only happen once, and they're considered severe. Pervasiveness is repeated. How intentional is this? Whether a series of events is sufficiently severe or pervasive to create a hostile work environment depends on the specific facts of each case. Relevant considerations may include the frequency of the conduct and the relationship between the number of incidences and the time period for which they occur. Look, I'm not trying to tell you that every single one of you have severe or pervasive incidences going on in the workplace, but you need to be looking at this very, very carefully. One of the examples that the EEOC provides in the guidance is a gentleman who works as a passenger service assistant for an airline alleges that a female coworker who shares the same schedule sexually harassed him for several weeks. The evidence showed that the female directed sexual overtures and other sex-based conduct at the gentleman as often as several times a week, despite his repeated statements that he was not interested. For example, the female gave the gentleman revealing photographs of herself, sent him notes asking for a date, described fantasies about him, even persistently told him how attractive he was and how much she loved him. Based on these facts, the conduct was sufficiently pervasive to create a hostile work environment. I'm giving you this example because I have seen this over and over and over again. And what's really sad is the companies that have brought that particular one examples to me, they don't want to interfere with the personal activities of their employees, but at the same time, this is coming into the workplace. And when you've got photographs, maybe nude photographs or inappropriate photographs being passed, do you think that employee is the only one who's going to hear or see that? No. That workplace violence or harassment spreads, whether it's in conversation or whether it's a distraction. And it's not just the two of them involved. When she had repeated situations, the employee, the gentleman in this particular scenario, should have come to you as the employer and said, hey, I got an issue. I need some help. So my question then is, how much are you talking, how much information are you providing to your employees to say, hey, we're here to listen. We want to know. They don't need to know. The employees don't need to know the definition of severe and pervasive. That's not what this is all about. But your supervisors do. And they need to be going out and saying, hey, if something like this starts, I need to know about it. And if one supervisor sees another supervisor intimidating or threatening, retaliating, just not handling themselves in a professional manner, they need to be coming to you as a leader of the company and saying, hey, I think we've got an issue. Severe and pervasive. 2 new words you need to know about as you are practicing your HR procedures, policies, the entire function, because these aren't going away. Angela, thank you. I appreciate this. And hope all of you did. We'll see you next week here at the Human Resource.